Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am your host, Derek Tyler Attico. This is Soul of the Story, Book 2, Chapter 11. I am here with a science fiction and fantasy author extraordinaire and incredible tie-in writer, Keith DeCandido. Keith, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Good to be here.
It's good to have you, man. As I was saying earlier, I've wanted to have you on since the first season. It was just a matter of when to ask you. And you were a part of the roundtable earlier. So thank you for coming back to Soul the Story. I appreciate it.
No, glad to be here. I love the concept of this podcast completely. So I was hoping you would ask me.
Well, thank you. Thank you. So we're gonna dive right in. My first question is I want to know, and this is something I ask pretty much all my guests, is what was that first artistic spark that you had, and I guess as a child?
I mean, it was always there.
Mhm.
I don't remember not wanting to create. My parents read to me when I was a kid.
Okay.
I was raised. I joke that I was raised by a roving pack of feral librarians. Um, Books were always a part of my life from the beginning, and they were always reading books to me when I was a kid, and then when I could read on my own, I was reading all sorts of stuff. I read Le Guin's Earthsea trilogy, Heinlein's YA books,
Oh wow, that's great.
The Hobbit, and also P.G. Woodhouse's Jeeves and Wooster stories. So that pretty much sums me up in a nutshell right there. So I always.
Do you remember what kind of things your parents read to you?
A lot of. I mean, it was mostly like picture books and kids books and stuff.
Right.
Like A Very Hungry Caterpillar, Millions of Cats.
Right.
Captain Nadjork, and Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day, which is a phrase I still use all the time. The Little Red Lighthouse and the Great Gray Bridge. That was one of my favorites.
Oh yeah. That was a great one too. So all right, but so did you know?
Go
ahead.
When I always wanted to make stories. The first thing I wrote was something I wrote on construction paper when I was 6. It was a book called Reflections in My Mirror. It's terrible. I was 6, but
6, yeah.
But I still have it. It's somewhere.
Wow, that's awesome.
And I keep it around to keep me humble. But but I don't know where it came from because it was always there. If you know what I mean.
Right.
I've always loved stories, and I've always wanted to be somebody who made stories. And the more stories I read, the more I thought, hey, I want to do this.
Wow. That's a beautiful thing, man. So 6, okay, so 6. So you go into high school. When did you start not writing professionally, but when did you just start really writing? Was that in high school? Was it before high school?
Probably high school was. Yeah, that was when I made my first attempt at writing a Star Trek novel, which was even worse. I think that was worse than the thing I wrote when I was 6. Because I should have known better. But I also did a lot of writing for the newspaper.
Okay.
I wrote movie reviews for the high school newspaper.
Nice.
Called The Pilot, and I did little bits of fiction here and there. Included there was another novel that I started and never finished because I didn't really know what I was doing with it. But and then in college I worked again for the college newspaper at Fordham University, which was just called The Paper, and I wrote reviews for that, and then I took over as arts editor and then executive editor. So I got to hone my writing there, and I also did started writing fiction here and there.
So this is a trajectory that you wanted to. It certainly sounds like you wanted to go on your whole life, right?
Oh yeah.
So, what did you see professionally for yourself when you're from transitioning from high school to college, and you're taking courses, and you're about to, you're in college, and you think you're gonna, go out into the world after college and get a job? What were you thinking you were going to be and do within publishing.
Whatever I could. I mean, the advantage of being an editor on the paper made me realize that was a career path I could choose that I could start with. You know?
Okay.
And that's what I did. I started out as an editor. I worked for Library Journal magazine right out of college, and then I went to work for Byron Price, who was a book packager for a bunch of years in the '90s, and that was sort of my starting point. Was
Right.
because that was something where I could have a steady job, have a regular income, you know, and work my way up that way while I tried to get the writing career going. And I just kept at it, trying to get stuff published until it happened.
Right. Right. I mean, I think it's great to start out as an editor because I mean you're absorbing so much material.
Yeah.
You know,
and it gave me some great experience too.
Right, you're getting great experience, and while you're working on your own prose. All right, so let's move forward a little bit. Your first professional sale. Talk about that. What was that?
It came about in the most non-replicable manner possible. I mean, you ask any 10 writers how they broke in, you get 12 different answers, but mine is particularly ridiculous. It was when I was working for Byron Price. So when I first started working for him, I was an associate editor working with John Betancourt, who was a senior editor, and the two of us were given a project. Which I wound up taking over shortly after that when John left the company. We did novels and short story anthologies based on Marvel superheroes.
Okay.
And we kicked off with a Spider-Man novel by Diane Duane called The Venom Factor and a short story anthology called The Ultimate Spider-Man. This was in 1994, so 6 years before Marvel's Ultimate line, so we got there first. But Byron loved the adjective ultimate. Every anthology he did was the ultimate something. So one of the first projects I did for him were two anthologies called The Ultimate Alien and The Ultimate Dragon. That was ultimate his favorite word. So we did The Ultimate Spider-Man, and we're putting this together. We already had a cover which had Spider-Man and 4 of his main villains on it, and we had stories featuring 3 of those villains. We did not have a Venom story. Now, you know this obviously, Derek, but for those people watching this who do not know the process, when you're writing licensed fiction, you have to have a proposal first.
Yes.
That has to be approved by the people who own it before you write the first word of the story of the novel. We had sent Marvel 6 different Venom proposals, all of which they rejected.
Wow.
So we're past the 11th hour, and we send a note to the people at Marvel saying, "What do you want in the Venom story?" And they gave us a sentence, and using that as a springboard, we didn't have time to hire anybody. I wrote a draft of the story, gave it to John. John tore it apart, rewrote it from the ground up, gave it back to me. I tore it apart, rewrote it from the ground up, gave it back to him. And that was how I got my first fiction sale, was desperation.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, it's desperation, and it's 11th hour. Yeah. But at the same time, you're writing a Venom story for Marvel, basically. What did that feel like?
That was fabulous. The Spider-Man has been my favorite superhero since I was a little kid. You and I are close enough to the same age, so you probably remember the Electric Company.
I do remember. Oh, yes.
Morgan Freeman. That was what introduced me to Spider-Man, actually.
Yeah, Spider-Man, absolutely. Yeah.
And that got me to, because they had a license to use Spider-Man on the Electric Company, which, for those of you who don't know, was a kid show from the 1970s. It was put together I believe it was put together by the Children's Television Workshop, who also did Sesame Street.
Yes.
Yeah. And it featured a very young Rita Moreno and
Morgan Freeman,
and a bunch of other people. Tom Lehrer did some stuff for it. Joan Rivers did some stuff for it. Yeah, she did some voiceover work for it. Tom Lehrer basically came out of retirement to write some songs for them. And they did some little bits with Spider-Man, and that got me interested in Spider-Man. I started reading Spider-Man comics, and he quickly became my favorite hero. So getting to write Spider-Man was an absolute thrill. That was part of why I jumped at it when anyone's like, John and I are talking. It's like, we don't have time to hire anybody. Can I just do this? So, and we wound up collaborating on it. It worked out great, actually. I worked with John for about a year. I learned more about editing in that year than in any other year.
No, I understand. Yeah, I understand.
He's a phenomenally good editor. I learned so much working with him.
Yeah.
And then once he left shortly thereafter, he and I together, we put together those first 2 books. He was the one who actually approached Peter David to write a Hulk novel and Greg Cox to write an Iron Man novel, and then I wound up, then he left, and I carried the ball from there.
Right.
And then I ran the project, and I got to do some other stuff for the Marvel line after that. other people in the company would edit my stuff there. I did a Silver Surfer short story, I did an X-Men short story, I did a Hulk short story, and then later I collaborated with Jose Nieto on a Spider-Man novel, which was my first novel, which again came about because of ridiculous means. Byron was too cheap to give me a raise, but he gave me a novel contract instead.
Which you took, I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'll take it, right? I'm not gonna not take it.
No.
So your first short story, your first novel, both tie-in fiction, both Marvel,
both Spider-Man, in fact,
both Spider-Man is fantastic.
Yeah.
That's weird because same with me. First short story and first novel is Trek. So right. So then that's tie-in. So okay, so your first short story is tie-in fiction. It's Marvel. Between that first short story and novel, what were you thinking? Like, were you thinking, I'm going to try and move into comics or tie-in, or I'm just going to just start doing my own thing? What was on your mind at that point?
I was mostly taking advantage of whatever tie-in opportunities came to me.
Okay, but you were looking for tie-in, right?
Yeah, one of the advantages of my job was I was in contact with people. Besides the Marvel stuff, I also got to pitch a Magic the Gathering story because I had been talking with the Wizards of the Coast people when Magic was just starting up.
Right. Okay. Right.
So I met them at Worldcon in which was at the San Francisco Worldcon in 1993, which was right when I started working for Byron. And so I stayed in touch with them as Magic was developing, and and that gave me the opportunity to pitch to one of their anthologies. I got to write a Doctor Who short story because the editor of a Doctor Who anthology wrote an X-Men story for me for the Marvel line. And he mentioned he was doing a Doctor Who anthology, and it was like, oh, can I pitch? And just as opportunities came that way, and each one built on the previous one because once you've got a few things under your belt, you can say, hey, I did all this stuff. Can I do that? I was friends with John Ordover, who was at the time editing Star Trek fiction. He did not even give me the chance to pitch until I'd already established myself. I had 4 novels published before he even let me consider pitching. He did not. He was not going to show any favoritism there. He wasn't going to.
That's great, though. That's great. Yeah, that's great.
Let me pitch until I had established myself as a novelist.
Right.
By the time I did pitch to him, I already had. So.
That's great. That's great. Okay, we're going to get to that. Let me back it up a little at this point. I'm curious because you've done so much work, so much writing that you're known for, but I don't know if our audience, they've read so much of your work, I'm sure, but I don't know if our audience also knows that you do karate and you're a musician.
Yes.
So I want to take a few moments and let's just talk about that. Which happened first, the music or the music? So let's talk about that. How did that start?
Music's always been a part of my life. I mean, I've always loved music. I'm always playing music. When I'm sitting at the computer, I've got music going all the time. I learned how to play percussion in college when I was at Fordham. We had every Wednesday night there was the Musicians Coffee House, which was held in one of the dorm room lounges every Wednesday night, which was just a bunch of people, mostly with acoustic guitars, just jamming.
Right.
We would hang out. People would take turns getting up and singing and such. And there was one guy there. His name is Sean O'Hare. He had a whole mess of percussion that he brought with him, and I was really interested in that. I don't play very many. I can play the recorder, and that's about it. I'm not very skilled in melodic stuff, but I had an aptitude for percussion. I realized, and Sean very kindly mentored me a bit, and showed me, helped me out there, and I started doing more and more percussion as time went on. I eventually got my own set of bongos initially, and once after I graduated, I started going to science fiction conventions, and I would bring some of the percussion with me and jam with some other musicians. Me, David Honigsberg, and Peter Heck wound up jamming at a lot of different shows with a bunch of other people, including Spider Robinson, actually. And we wound up forming a band, which we jokingly called the Don't Quit Your Day Job Players, which then stuck. And the band kind of grew. We formally became a band, I think, in 1995. We did 2 CDs, one in 96 and one in 99. Band kept growing. And then we broke up in 2000 because all bands break up.
All bands break up. That's a weird thing, but all bands break up, right.
I backed up some other people. Two of the guys in the band, Steven Rosenhaus and David Honingsberg, did solo stuff, where I would back them up on stuff, uh, both on CDs and live. Um, David unfortunately passed away in 2007, but
I'm sorry.
uh, I still played with Steve quite a bit. Actually, we had a running thing. We played the Back Fence down in Greenwich Village, and we also had a gig with a small, very off Broadway theater where we would play music in the lobby like before the show started.
Oh, that's great.
That was
So,
fun. And then in 2006, I joined the Boogie Knights.
right, which is the band
They play Farpoint, Shore Leave, Convivial, and we played Dragon Con a few times and other stuff. We a parody band that plays at conventions. And I've been their percussionist now for almost 20. It'll be 20 years in when we do next year's Farpoint will be the 20th anniversary of my joining the group. And lately I've also been playing with our mutual friend Christopher Abbott.
Right.
Chris has his own band, and I've played with them a couple times, and that's going to keep happening. I really enjoy.
That's fantastic. I need to. I've not heard his stuff. I've seen a little bit of. I need to actually when he does a concert or something. I need to go.
Oh, it's definitely worth it. He's a phenomenal singer.
He looks like he's jamming, so that looks like a lot of fun.
That's very recent. The karate didn't start until 2004.
Before we get to the karate, let me ask you a little bit more about music. Now, have you done any songwriting?
Little bit. I wrote 2 songs that the Boogie Knights have performed.
Okay.
These are parodies, so it's new lyrics on existing songs. I did one called "Wreck the Shrine," which is to the tune of "This Little Light of Mine," except it's basically the plot of a kung fu revenge movie. And and I also wrote a song called "Young Master Frodo," which is to the tune of an old Irish folk song called "General Taylor."
I ask because for me, I've tried it. I've bombed terribly. I find songwriting the hardest form of writing.
Oh, it's incredibly hard. Those two, and there's one other song I wrote jointly with other members of the Don't Quit Your Day Job Players. We the four of the band jointly wrote a song called "Another Saturday Night in Lubbock," which we wrote after a disastrous gig in Lubbock, Texas, at a convention there.
Wow.
Everything went wrong on this thing.
So you had to write a song.
Horrible. So the 4 of us, basically, as we're waiting to get driven to the airport, we're sitting down and writing this song, which was our way of purging the experience. Basically.
No, it's great. Right, it's great therapy. It's great therapy.
So that and I wrote a couple other silly songs that never got performed or anything happened with. But yeah, no, I'm with you. It's incredibly hard.
It's incredibly hard.
I find prose much easier.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so with that in mind, now how did your martial arts come into play in your life?
That started when I turned 35 and the warranty ran out. Basically, everything stopped working, and my doctor said, "Hey, maybe you should try exercising once." Because I didn't, I lived the life of an indolent writer, and I was overweight, and I had the stamina of an asthmatic ant, and I lived in a 3rd floor walk up at the time, and I would be dead just walking up the stairs.
Right.
And I finally okay, fine, we got to do something about this. So I picked a karate dojo purely based on its proximity to my house.
Why karate then?
Because it was the one proximate to my house. That was basically I wanted to do martial arts. I knew if I joined a gym, I would give them all my money and never show up. So, which gyms count on. But I was always had an interest in martial arts, just from a civilian perspective, as it were. But I thought it would be something that would be interesting, and I picked karate specifically because there was a karate dojo walking distance from where I live.
Right.
If it had been a Taekwondo dojo, I would have picked that. I would have been that. If it had been Aikido, I would have picked that. Whatever. I was going for something close that I could get to easily from where I live.
What is unique about your particular style? Can you talk a little bit about that?
It's very focused on self-improvement and on community. It's very inclusive. It's very big on everybody helping everybody else. And also it's not competitive, which I really appreciate. there are plenty of martial arts where your entire focus is on them being the baddest mother on the block, as it were.
Right, right,
And there are plenty of styles that focus on that, and that's fine for some people. I That's not for me. This is a very friendly dojo. I mean, we the teacher is his name is Chuseki Shion Paul Sukdar, and he's like won international fighting tournaments. He doesn't fight anymore professionally, but he used to in the 80s and 90s, and through to about like the mid 2000s. And then he what I love is he pushes you, but he never pushes too hard. Like he always, he never asks you to do anything you're not capable of, but he also is really good at finding what you are capable of, and it's usually more than you yourself think you are capable.
right,
Um, and but he never pushes. He never asks you to do anything you're not physically capable of doing.
right.
And he also is very good about not so much telling you what you did wrong as showing you how to do it right, which is a minor thing, but it makes all the difference.
It makes all the difference, absolutely. And you hold a black belt, but you are fourth degree, is that right? Fourth
Yeah.
degree. And as I understand, you when you teach now, you teach children, is that right?
Yeah, once a week I teach kids at a local school. It's part of a larger after school program. It's basically a program designed to keep kids busy between the hours of 3 and 6.
It's a great way to keep them busy.
Which is handy for like doubling single parents and for double income parents or whatever. Just to, so that the parents can work a full day and then pick them up
Okay.
later. So once a week I teach to kids between the ages of 5 and 10, in 4 different groups. It's not as formal as what we do in the dojo,
Right.
but it covers a lot of the same basic stuff.
That's great.
And I enjoy it. And I also teach at our dojo periodically. Um, the person, Chiseki Chan Paul, is about to go away for 3 weeks on a big hiking trip that he's been planning for a long time. So I'm one of the people who will be teaching in his stead while he's gone as well.
That's fantastic.
I love teaching. That was the thing I did not expect. Like I expected to get in better shape. I expected, and I enjoy taking classes. Becoming a teacher caught me off guard.
What is it you enjoy about teaching?
Um, I love conveying what's happening to people. I love watching people learn. I love being able to share the knowledge with other people. And there's something very satisfying about showing it to somebody and seeing them learn it. And it's also helped me in my own training. I've learned from teaching. There's stuff that I'm better at because I've taught it. For a bunch of years, we had a kids fighting class in our dojo, which lasted up until COVID, and then we didn't do fighting at all. I mean, when the pandemic hit,
I imagine.
well, the dojo kept going, but we did classes virtually
Oh,
over Zoom.
that's great.
And then later we did hybrid classes, but we didn't actually do sparring in the dojo for over a year.
Wow.
Because it was too risky.
Right. You
And,
couldn't have.
you can practice kata and you can practice combinations and self defense and stuff while socially distancing. You cannot socially distance while you fight.
Right, right. There's no way to spar
Yeah.
at 6 feet,
Yeah, it
6 feet
wasn't
apart.
until
Right.
God, it was like June or July of 2021 when we finally started fighting again.
Wow.
And for and we had to like get back into it. But up until the spring of 2020, we had a kids fighting class that I taught. Now the kids fighting class is one of the regular classes which Juseki Shan teaches. But for a while there, I was teaching that, and I loved it, and it actually made me a better fighter.
Right.
And I love working with kids. I don't have kids of my own, and I've never really wanted kids, but I like working with kids and getting to know them and watching them grow up and teaching them. It's incredibly gratifying. It's especially great with the after school program, which I've been doing for 11 years now.
Wow.
At the end of the year, we have a big ceremony where my Juseki Chan Paul comes down and he runs them through all their techniques, and then they all get promoted. They get new belts, and it's so gratifying to get there at the end, because there are times when it's like you're not sure if they're really paying attention, if they're really getting
right. If they're gonna make it,
they're doing everything and doing it well, and it's great.
Wow.
It's incredibly fulfilling.
Wow.
And like I said, it completely caught me off guard. This was not something I was expecting to be part of my life. And and I love it. I love doing it. So.
It sounds like we have no plans on stopping, which is
Ooh.
really good. Which is really
Although
good.
I'm now hitting, I'm 56 years old now, and I'm hitting the point where being in shape is fighting against the aging process very hard.
Right.
And taking me longer to recover from things, and you know, I it's going to be interesting what the next 10 years bring with that.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be for lack of trying on my part.
Exactly.
I love this. I love doing it. I One of the reasons why I can do what I do, because I do a lot of different things. I write, I teach, I go to a lot of conventions every year.
You do.
At those conventions, I'm usually selling books, so I have to haul all the books around, and books are heavy.
Right.
And one of the reasons why I can do all that is because I go to the dojo 3-4 times a week.
For those that don't know, Keith has been gracious enough to give me lifts to quite a few conventions, and I've traveled with him, and he has a whole system, and he has a whole setup, and it is a thing of beauty to see you set up, pack it all in, pack it all up, and it's really amazing. Let
I've
me
got
ask
really good card Tetris, but
right. Let me ask you, how has your music and your martial arts informed your writing?
well, it's something that plays a role in some of my writing, certainly. It's interesting. The martial arts in particular, I've always been good at writing fight scenes even before I started training.
I was
Um,
going to ask that, right?
um, there was a period there when I first started training I first started in September of 2004. And for the first few books I did after that, my fight scenes actually got worse because I was like, oh, I know how this works now. And I started like really getting into, I had nutoiditis with this, and I was like going into graphic detail about how all the fights work, which is incredibly boring if you're not actually training in martial arts.
Right.
So I had to pull that back. It's better now. um, and I look at some of my older fight scenes and I wince, but from before I started. But in general, uh, it has helped in a lot of ways with uh, writing action scenes and stuff, and I have a better appreciation of what the human body is capable of than I did before.
I can
Um,
imagine.
Music, I mean, it depends on the stories. There's certain, like I have a cycle of stories that take place in Key West, Florida, urban fantasy stories, where one of the main things is there is a band that plays at one of the local bars called 1812, who are major supporting parts of the story, and so that music plays a big role. One of the these are major characters in this set of stories, and they play all the time. And my main character is always hanging out at the bar and watching them play, so that the music plays a big part of those stories. Um, it's music is all over the place, and
Yeah, yeah,
it's an important part of a lot of people's lives, and a lot of what makes us human. And
yeah.
so it's something I like to occasionally play. It's hard in prose. You can't always, because there's no sound. But uh, it can be a challenge, but it's fun to do sometimes.
Yeah. And I think the
So
more
the transcendent power that music can have.
absolutely, and I think the more experiences we have in life, just living life as writers, that all in turn is seen in what we write.
Yeah.
So your writing, your martial arts, all of that. So you mentioned earlier that you had written 4 novels before you even pitched for anything Star Trek. So can we
Yeah.
talk a little bit about your first Star Trek pitch and what that was like?
Actually, the first pitch got rejected. The
Oh,
Yeah, it was a movie era story. A bunch of people got stranded on a planet, and it didn't really do anything for John. But when I sent that to him, and he came back to me and said, this one isn't working for me, but I just got the script in for the Deep Space Nine finale. This is in 1999. And he said, it ends with Worf being made Federation ambassador to the Klingon Empire. Would you like to write the first story of him doing that? I said, absolutely. He knew Worf was my favorite character. Well, one of my 2 favorite characters. The other was Kira.
right.
And uh, and actually, it's funny. But I've been very lucky with a lot of this stuff. My first short story and novel were with my favorite superhero. My first 2 Star Trek novels focused on my 2 favorite characters. My
Oh
first
wow.
one, Worf.
Work
My
and
second one, I mean, it was a DS9 novel, and it was an ensemble piece, but Kira played a major role in it.
right.
She was the lead in that book.
Was that purposeful in your pitch, or?
No. I mean, like I said, the first thing I pitched was a TOS movie era.
Okay, right.
And then John came to me with the idea of doing the first Ambassador Worf story, which I had a great time with. That was the novel Diplomatic Impossibility. And then Marco Palmieri approached me to do one of his post finale Deep Space Nine stories, specifically the one that was going to be part of the Gateways crossover. And that, I mean, Kira was the lead at that point, for
Right.
the stories that took place after What You Leave Behind. Kira was now the head of the station. So
She was the head of the station, absolutely, yeah. She was the commander, yeah.
So
So by this time, this is your first jaunt into Star Trek, but by this time, how are you doing in regards to tie-in fiction? Because you've had a little bit of Marvel under your belt, and there's so much other tie-in fiction that you've done. So between that Marvel stuff and the first Star Trek, have you done a lot of other tie-in work between those?
Honestly, until for the first 10 years of my career, everything I did was tie-in.
Was tie-in, right? Right.
Maybe one or two short stories, but no, the other besides the Spider-Man book, the other 3 books that I did before the first Trek book were 2 Young Hercules novels, and a Buffy the Vampire Slayer novelization.
Right.
So I
you've pretty much written for everything we all love.
not quite everything, we're close.
Well, pretty close, man. Star Trek, Buffy, Andromeda, Farscape.
My most recent one is The Green Hornet and Kato, which is coming out soon.
Okay.
That's a short story anthology that Moonstone's putting out. That was a big bucket list item for me. And of course, being you talk about martial arts informing my work. Martial arts informed that story a lot.
I would imagine so. Yeah. Right.
In fact, the story is called. I got to title my Green Hornet and Kato short story. Everybody was kung fu fighting, which I could not resist.
Couldn't resist, right?
No. Right. And the stories all take place in Detroit in the late 60s. It's specifically like shortly after the TV show, and it's in the setting of the TV show specifically. That's what they had the license dictated for this particular anthology. So the stories are based. It's Van Williams and Bruce Lee's versions of the Green Hornet and Kato, and it takes place in the late 60s.
Better, right?
And what's great about it is several of the stories really played into the history of what was going on in Detroit at the time, including things like the 12th Street riots in my case, it was the deterioration of Chinatown that was happening in the wake of the expressway basically bisecting the neighborhood, which is something I'm familiar with from what had happened here in New York when the interstates basically screwed up lots of neighborhoods in the outer boroughs. And that was fun. And I also got to play with the fact, martial arts was starting to become a thing in the States in the late 60s, due in part to Bruce Lee. So that was fun.
So yeah, so you get to do.
Yes, I've been very lucky. I've gotten to write a lot of different fun licenses. I actually wrote the first novel based on Andromeda, and the first novel based on Farscape, and the first novel based on Supernatural, which is a completely irrelevant accomplishment, but it was nice.
Whoa, fantastic!
Based on and only one based on Sleepy Hollow, the Tommy.
On that series, yeah.
Show, yeah. They only did one. They did one novel, and there was also they put out a diary of Ichabod Crane. They didn't do anything beyond that, but
all right. So wow. What I love, just one of the things I love about your career is that I think people just do these things naturally, where they will associate like an actor with a genre or a film, like Schwarzenegger is like Terminator and stuff. I know for myself, I'm being associated now with Cisco and Trek, but you are associated with 2 things, I think, and tell me if this is off the mark. But when I hear people talk about you, they talk about you in regards to tie-in fiction separately. Oh, he's a tie-in fiction author. He's done all this tie-in work, which I think is great. And then they talk about your Star Trek work specifically. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean that's what I've written the most of.
Right.
At least in the tie-in world. That I've written a lot. I've written a lot of Star Trek especially between 2000 and 2009. The first millennium, I wrote a ton of Star Trek.
A ton of it, yeah. So I want to ask you about one of the ones that you've written, one of the novels you've written that everyone, just present company included, loves. Is the one that you said is a cross between West Wing and Star Trek, which is Star Trek Federation.
It was Articles of Federation.
Articles of the Federation, excuse me,
Yeah.
Articles of the Federation, right. So can you talk a little bit about how that came to be and everything behind that?
Honestly, it started with John Ordover coming to me saying, "Hey, I want you to do a Star Trek version of The West Wing." I mean, it was as simple as that in terms of its origin. Um, we over the course of Star Trek on screen, we'd seen in graphic detail Klingon politics, Romulan politics, Bajoran politics, Cardassian politics. We'd seen very little of Federation politics, even in situations where we should have seen more of it.
Right.
It particularly bugged me that we didn't see much of the Federation government during the Dominion War in Deep Space Nine. You know, that's something where we should have seen the president. We should have seen, more people, more people in the Federation government. Um, and yeah, and even like at the end, it was we didn't have the Federation president at the treaty signing, which was ridiculous. Um, so one of the things we wanted to do was actually dig into what the Federation politics would be like.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, and then the John left the company, Marco took it over, and then and he and I worked on the plot together. It grew out of the A Time To series specifically. We did 9 books that chronicled the year leading up to Star Trek Nemesis. It was
Wow.
the gap between Insurrection and Nemesis.
Right.
It's setting up not just that movie, but also setting up what would come after the movie, because Nemesis was at least at the time the last Next Generation story. Simon and Schuster was being given carte blanche to develop the 24th century however the heck they wanted. By the time that the Time To series was in 2004, by that time, on-screen Star Trek was focused on the 22nd and 23rd centuries and continued to be basically until 2020. Between Enterprise, the Bad Robot movies, and Discovery, they were focusing on the 22nd and 23rd centuries almost completely. So the 24th century was completely fair game. And so the Time To series was partly designed to not only set up Nemesis, but to set up everything coming later, like the Titan books and post finale Next Gen and all that. And one of the things we had in my book, I wrote the last book of the series, which is called A Time For War, A Time For Peace, which included the election of President Nan Bako, and then after that, Articles was her first year in office. And we wanted to show what politics is like in a utopia. And one of the biggest challenges in writing the book was, how do you write a government where money isn't involved?
Oh yeah.
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 Which was a big challenge. Basically, I found myself focusing, obviously not on money, but on resource allocation, which is still going to be a thing. You're still going to need to figure out who goes, what goes where your resources get sent. So that was a big part of it, and also there's still personalities involved.
It's a fantastic
150 different people from 150 different planets, all sitting in a room arguing with each other.
Right. You still have to manage that.
Exactly. And politics are still gonna be a thing. Plus, we want, like, one of the things Marco specifically wanted to do. And I think one of his best contributions to the plot of the story was, we've seen First Contact from Starfleet's perspective. They show up at the planet, they make contact, everybody's friends, and then they go off and go to the next planet. What happens after that? And so we had a state dinner that the president hosts with these new aliens that have been contacted by one of Starfleet's ships, and they show up, and then of course things go wrong, because if things didn't go wrong, you wouldn't want to include it in the book.
Right. Of course.
But so that was part of the fun, and also because this was taking place right after Star Trek Nemesis, so we had the fact that the Romulan Empire, the Romulan Senate, had just been turned into pixie dust, and the guy who turned them into pixie dust got blown up. So there's a bit of chaos there in one of the major powers of the quadrant.
Right. Yeah, it's a really good book.
Yeah,
it's really good.
I had a lot of fun with it. It was, and there were some things that I freely admit I stole completely from the West Wing. And
but I mean, that's okay. It's West Wing, and I think that's fine. That's fine.
But I also tried to make it very much a Star Trek story.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's lots of familiar characters in it, including Spock is in it for a bit, the EMH from Voyager, um, Admiral Ross from DS9, and so on. So and I actually try to make what I came up with was something that was sort of a mix of the American uh, congressional system and and a more European parliamentary setup, sort
Right.
of a fusion of those two. And
You know, there's a rumor, we don't know anything one way or the other. There's a rumor that Scott Bakula might reprise Archer as president of the Federation, and I
I
swear to
would
you,
love
man, the first person I thought of was you. So
Hey, I was happy when they made the Federation president a recurring character on Discovery.
right,
You
right.
know, I loved that
I
character.
thought about you then
I,
too.
I hope we see more of her in the Academy show. And
Right.
I actually got to write a short story with her for Star Trek Explorer,
That's
which
right. That's
was
right.
basically her backstory. I had to write that. It was like they get
Yeah, that's totally
I
on.
literally wrote the book on the Federation presidency.
Yeah, it's your territory. Yeah, definitely. All right, so we've covered some tie-in stuff. I want to talk about your original work, but before I do that, I want to pivot really quick to comics because you've also done a substantial amount of work, man, in comics. So can you talk about the first time that you started working in comic books and what that was like?
First comic I did was actually also Star Trek. When the comics license wound up with Wildstorm in
Okay.
'99, and it was after Marvel punted it. And I had a front row seat for that one. That was one of the advantages of being a Marvel licensor, and also our offices were
Oh,
like
right, because you were on both sides
right,
of it. Right.
and because I was doing the Marvel books, and because their offices were only a few blocks away from us, so I was going over there all the time. Just to and several of the people working there at the time were friends of mine, still are.
Yeah, I can imagine so. Sure.
So I used to go over there and have lunch with people all the time.
Yeah.
So I got a front row seat for Marvel's bankruptcy Michigas that they were going through
Wow.
the late
That's
90s.
interesting. Yeah.
And they had the Star Trek license and they dropped it like a hot potato out of nowhere. That was part of their bankruptcy proceedings. Basically, somebody new came in, was looking at the book, saying, "We cannot possibly make money on this. Let's kill it."
Can't
Basically,
possibly make money.
the only way they made money on it is if they did like X-Men numbers, and they were not doing X-Men.
Right.
So they dropped it, and so DC picked it back up and farmed it out to Wildstorm. The editor was Jeff Marriott, who
Mhm.
was working for Wildstorm at the time, and he went to people who were writing Star Trek novels to pitch stuff to him. And I had already, I hadn't actually had one published yet, but I'd already written Diplomatic Implausibility. And Jeff knew me. Jeff had known me for years, so he gave me the opportunity to pitch. And I pitched a 4-issue miniseries called Perchance to Dream, which was a very interesting experience. I read that now and I wince because I obviously I was being too much of a prose writer. That comic book is way too wordy.
Way too wordy. Yeah. This is what I teach, that
Yeah.
less is more when it comes to scripts and
Yeah,
comic book scripts.
all the comics I've done since then are better about
Yeah.
that.
No, of course. Right.
It was a learning experience.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed doing it. It was a story I had a lot of fun with. I got the artist I worked with, Peter Perlumis, was great. And then I did a few comics here and there. I've done a couple other Star Trek comics. My biggest comics project, though, was the Farscape comic books that I did from 2008 to 2011, where I got to collaborate with Rockne O'Bannon, who created the show, and we basically did season 5 of Farscape in comic
Farscape, right?
Yeah. And I got my Rigel back here, but
that's right. Yeah, Rigel behind you. Right.
That was one of the best experiences of my career. Was I got to work with Rockne. I mean, he was the creative force behind the show. So getting to do that was just a huge honor and tremendous fun. Rockne is incredibly creative and he's great to work with. And I love Farscape. I'd written a Farscape novel. I wrote 3 Farscape short stories while the show was on the air. And then when Boom picked up the license, I was like Donkey in Shrek. Pick me. And I had the advantage. Rockne actually liked my novel, so he advocated for me also to work with him, which helped. And
what was that like? Was it like a skull session between the two of you? What was that like?
He would write he would basically write the plot for each 4-issue storyline. Initially, we did 4-issue miniseries, then we did an ongoing series, but it was still in 4-issue story arcs,
Right.
and for ease of later trade paperbacks. And so he would do that. I would then do a page by page breakdown of how the script was going to go, and once he approved that, then I would write the script, and then it went to the artist. That process gave me my single favorite note that I've ever gotten in 35 years of writing,
You have
which
to tell us.
is so in the second miniseries we did, it was called Strange Detractors. There was a disease that made everybody really aggressive, and they find a cure for it, and everybody's fine. I came up with the idea, and I put this in the page by page breakdown, that one of the side effects of the cure is that you throw up.
Okay.
To which Rockney's note, which will surprise nobody who's actually seen Farscape, his note was, "Love the puke. Who doesn't love puke?" Farscape is the only TV show in the history of the medium
That's
in
true.
which a character's flaming pee was how that week's problem of the week was solved.
That's true. That's true.
And so yes, I put the puke in there. It was Rockney's idea, however, for Moya's puke to be all rainbows.
And and Rigel threw up a few times in the show as
yeah, they all did.
Recall.
So did Zan.
Wow.
It was puke is always fun. And
Spelling amazing. That's right.
Yeah. But and then for what wound up being the swan song of the series was we did a 12-part story called The War for the Uncharted Territories. At that point, Rockney had gotten a gig. He was in the writer's room for the revival of V, the reboot of V that they did.
Right.
Years ago. And when you're in the writer's room of an ongoing TV show, that is a 36-hour-a-day, 9-day-a-week job.
Oh yeah,
and so Rockney had not have time to do as much work as he did. So he basically gave me a plot for a 12-issue storyline that was exactly as long as the ones he'd given me for the 4-issue ones. So it was much thinner in terms of overall story. And then so I got a co-plotting credit on that one.
Nice.
That storyline.
Nice.
And then after that, they canceled it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But
that's a good run, man. That's good.
Yeah, it was 3 years.
Yeah.
And I got to not only write that, I also did 3 Dargo-focused miniseries that I wrote, which was a lot of fun. The first one I worked with Neil Edwards. The second 2 I worked with Caleb Cleveland, and Caleb was fantastic to work with. Ditto Will Sliney. Will Sliney's gone on to do all sorts of wonderful stuff. He worked on Spider-Man 2099 with Peter David.
Right.
Other stuff, Will was great. I loved working with Will. And that was a very productive. It's real. One of the things I like about comics is that when it works, you get to work with the collaborative process with the artist can be very rewarding.
Can be very rewarding, yeah, for sure.
It's not always, there have been some instances where I had no communication with the artist whatsoever, and things haven't turned out the way I would have liked.
Right.
Sometimes it works. Like I did a Resident Evil graphic novel just a couple of years ago. It was a 5-issue miniseries that was then collected. I had no contact with the artist whatsoever, but he did a great job.
Right.
Exactly.
Sometimes you just have to trust that everything in the script.
The best though was IDW did a couple of Alien Spotlight one-shots.
Oh, okay.
Did, I think 8 or 9 of them. I did a Klingon one for them, which shouldn't surprise anybody because if what I'm best known for in my Star Trek work is either Articles of the Federation or my Klingon books. So those are the 2 things. Right. So I pitched a Klingon story, and I worked with J.K. Woodward, who I've done a bunch of different things with him. In fact, I'm working on an original comic book with him right now. And the setup of the one shot is Kang, Michael Ansara's character, at 3 different points in his life, telling a story, the moral of which is 4,000 throats may be cut in a single night by a running man. One is early in his career, one is during the movie era, and then one shortly before Blood Oath.
Right. And Kang is a TOS original series character, but we see him in the movie. Well, we see him again in Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, and also in Voyager during the movie era.
And in Voyager, that's right.
Yeah.
And in Voyager.
So, and I love Kang. Kang is the reason why I'm a big fan of Klingons. It was Day of the Dove that sold me on
absolutely
Klingons being awesome. and Michael Ansara and his amazing voice.
Yeah, it's phenomenal acting.
Actually, I've got my Kang action figure here.
Yeah. That was like the figure of the day. Yeah.
The JK took it one step further. Each of the 3 stories Kang told, he drew it in a different art style. So the one was done in a sort of anime style a little bit.
Right.
One was done with watercolors. It was beautiful, very nicely done. And then he fully painted one. The last one with that Kang was a story he told to the albinos, one of his discarded wives that he mentioned in Blood Oath, and he's caring for her, and he tells her a story of ancient. So it's an ancient Klingon story, and he did it fully painted, and it was gorgeous. And it was just, and it took my story and added so much,
elevated it, right? Yeah.
And I didn't even think of it. He did this entirely on his own, and that was great. That was one of my absolute favorite collaborations.
Yeah, that's the beauty of a artist-writer collaboration when it's working.
Yeah,
they elevate the work. So let's pivot now back to prose and your own work, not tie-in work. I know you have a novel that just came out recently.
Yes.
The Supernatural Crimes Unit.
Yes.
First of all, this cover is just dope.
I love that cover so much.
That's a badass emblem shield cover. All of the above. Can you please tell us about the Supernatural Crimes Unit, Keith?
First of all, I want to the cover designer is Jeff Wong, who is the art director for Weird Tales magazine, and who also has been doing the covers for the Weird Tales Presents imprint of Blackstone Publishing, which is publishing this book. I love Jeff's work. Jeff is phenomenal, and he did the interior design as well, and just did an amazing job. And so the book is about a unit of the NYPD that handles crimes involving magic and monsters. That's the basic setup. It's an urban fantasy taking place in contemporary New York. The conceit is that mythical creatures and magic users and such were kind of underground and invisible and not really public very much until about 5 years before the novel takes place, when a vampire killed a mayor's aide and was caught on camera. And it was very definitely a vampire. He had like oversized teeth.
Ouch.
Neck. He changed into a bat and flew away. Right. So all of this was caught on camera.
So he literally took a bite of the Big Apple, right? Took a bite of it.
So a task force was formed to close that case, and then once it was closed, they formed the unit since they had to admit now that there are some crimes that are more Anne Rice than Ed McMahon, and so that's we pick up with the unit. They've got their own headquarters on 106th Street in a brownstone that has been converted, or a tenement building rather that's been converted. There's a lieutenant, a sergeant, 5 detectives, a bunch of uniforms, some support staff, including an archivist who's an expert on the supernatural. There's various informants, including a vampire, a 300-year-old vampire who runs a BDSM club in Soho.
Who I love it.
He is one of those characters that sometimes there's some certain characters who you don't expect to just take over.
Right.
Malaparte, the vampire running the BDSM club, he totally he dominated every scene he was in. He was only supposed to be in one scene. He wound up in 2 scenes because the character basically demanded that he show up again. And everybody who's read it, including Patricia Santamasso, who read the audio of the book, my beta readers, like everybody was like, I love Malaparte. Malaparte's wonderful. So
this is kind of a series too, is that right?
I hope so. My contract is for 1 book with an option for more.
Okay.
This is for everybody's protection. I have seen way too many instances of books that were purchased as a trilogy, and then like they were the first book comes out, they've just finished the second book, and then the first book tanks, and then they're stuck, and like nobody, like the author doesn't even want to write the 3rd book because nobody's ordering the book, no, it's not selling, and it's just a nightmare for everybody.
Right.
So we're waiting to see. I should know hopefully in December if they plan on picking up the option. I've already got the plot for book 2 set. and so I just need to go ahead to actually write it.
How long did this take to write?
Um, um,
I know
about
you're pretty fast, man.
yeah, but I wanted to take my time with this one. I think it was like 4 months.
Yeah.
That's my version of taking.
No, that's about right. Yeah, yeah. No, for
I'll
you,
probably
that's
write
about
the
right.
second one
Yeah.
a lot faster, but if it happens. But yeah, I mean, I am I have written books. The fastest I've written a novel, an original novel, is 2.5 weeks. The
Woo-hoo-hoo.
fastest I have written a movie novelization, is 10 days.
Jeez,
And
man.
that one was especially annoying because the movie novelization never actually got published.
Oh,
I
how do
busted
you
my
write
ass working on
something?
that.
How do you write a movie? My head would just exploded. 10
I
days.
don't know it, but
Did you do anything else in that 10-day period, or did you just sit and
it
write?
is possible that I slept.
Because I mean, yeah, Cisco took
No,
me
it
like
was
6 months, man.
it was absolutely nuts. I did the novelization of Serenity back in 2005. I did that in 2.5 weeks. And what was especially annoying about that, the movie was supposed to be released originally in the spring of 2005.
Right.
So I got the gig in November of 2004, and I was told I had to have it in by the Monday of Thanksgiving of 2004. That was the latest it could be turned in and still make the release date. So 2.5 weeks, I wrote that novelization. Monday of Thanksgiving week, I email it to my editor. She sends one copy off to Universal for their approval. She sends one copy off to production so they can get that going, and whatever changes they want will get incorporated in the galleys.
Right.
I take a nap. And then either Tuesday or Wednesday, Joss Whedon gets on the internet and says, "Hey kids, guess what? Serenity's been moved from April to September." You know those things where you like see the picture of the skyline and somebody screaming? That was
Right.
me.
That was you.
I was like, "You've got to be." And the worst part was we couldn't verify it because it was Thanksgiving week. Everybody gone home,
So everyone,
and
right.
so we had to wait until the following Monday to verify if this was actually true or not. And it was. And it's like, I could have had 6 more months.
Can we talk a little bit, since we're on this topic, can we talk a little bit about self-care for artists, for writers, especially when you're on deadline and doing things? What is your practice? I'm curious to know for self-care.
Um, uh, Honestly, going to the dojo is part of it. Um, Being able to just stop what I'm doing, go to the dojo, sweat for an hour, and
Right.
that is very valuable for just clearing my head, um, and resetting my brain
Yeah.
when I'm uh, under a tight deadline.
Yeah.
And
Boxing for me. So that's similar. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a big one. I always, I love food. So pausing to like cook, or just eat a meal, or share a meal with my wife, or whatever. That can be a valuable break. Um, and I take a lot of naps.
Naps are
People always look at me and say, "How do you look so young?" Because I don't really. Well, I'm starting to look 56. I'm starting to get gray in here, but I generally don't look my age, and I joke that Torture to My Attic looks like crap, but in reality, it's naps. Naps are what keep
yeah,
me.
you gotta take them. So
Yeah.
was that your most challenging or has it been a more challenging project than doing something in 10 days or 2 weeks?
I mean, every project has its own. Honestly, the probably the biggest challenge for me was a Star Trek project I did in 2014 called The Klingon Art of War.
Oh, I was so good.
Yeah,
That's really
thank you.
good.
That
Yeah.
was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be to write. Because for all intents and purposes, I was writing a self-help book. It was a very violent self-help book, but that's what it was.
It is, right.
Yeah, it's 10 precepts on how to live your life as a proper warrior. And that it was a much greater challenge than I thought it was going to be. And it was much more difficult. It was a style of writing that I wasn't used to. And plus I have to write it, as a Klingon. So like it's one thing to be writing fictional prose about Klingons because you're not, your narrator at the very least is still, human to some extent.
Right.
Um, having the whole book be written by Klingons means it's a much more aggressive and bombastic style of writing, which frankly is exhausting. And,
I read it
so,
when I was doing some work for Star Trek Adventures.
right.
And by that time, we had known each other, and I was like, wow, a lot of this feels like a culmination of things that I know about Keith, and which is
Yeah,
really cool because it kind of like filled in a little bit about you, but it definitely is a Klingon book at the same time. So I think it's a really good read to anyone that wants to understand Klingons.
yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
I've always, like I said, like since I watched Day of the Dove as a kid, I have loved the Klingons, and it was
Yeah.
one of some of my favorite stuff that I've written for Star Trek has been the Klingon focused stuff, like the four books that take place on the IKS Gorkon, um, the Art of the Impossible, which was the Lost Era book that I did, which had a conflict between the Klingons and the Cardassians, the Klingon Art of War, a bunch of short stories, lots of stuff. It was
Wow.
I really enjoy writing about that particular species.
That's kind of your thing, man. So
Although having said that, uh, when they got to doing the Worlds of Deep Space Nine books in 2004 2005,
right.
I begged Marco to let me do the Ferengi because I've been doing so much Klingon stuff, and I wanted to do something that was
You want to go the
180
other way,
degrees
right?
from the Klingons, and so I really wanted to do the Ferengi, and I'm so glad I did. I had way too much fun with it.
You've done so much work, man. Such a breadth of material. We're coming to a close. Is there anything that you haven't done yet that that you have your eye on, or that is on your list of this is something that I really want to do?
There's a bunch. I would love to write a Star Wars book. I have yet to be able to break into that particular license.
Right.
Uh, there's so much that they've been doing with the Star Wars universe the last 10-15 years that genuinely fascinates me. I was never interested in writing a Star Wars book when it was still controlled by George Lucas, but since Disney took over, they've expanded the universe in so many interesting directions. And while not everything they've done has necessarily been successful, I think it's been much more. It's a much more interesting universe now. It's a much more complex one, with a lot more different points of view and different types of characters that they're telling stories about. So that I would love to do that. I would love to do more, supernatural crimes books, obviously.
Well, I'd love to.
I would love for somebody to, pick up one of my original things and make a TV show or a movie out of it. That hasn't happened yet.
Well, this has potential.
Yes.
I mean, not that your other work doesn't, but this certainly is.
Oh yeah, that was. I mean, the SCU book. It's an ensemble piece. It's got lots of different. One of the things I tried really hard to do with it is bring in a lot of different types of mythical creatures, not just your vampires and your werewolves and your Europeans. Right. The very first creature we see in the book is a shape changer from Russian mythology, Domovoy. We've got a kappa, which is a sort of mix between a turtle and a lizard from Japanese mythology that is very gassy. Okay. and one of them killed one of his roommates. And
I can't wait to dig into this.
There's a Taoxia, which is a creature that's stealing things in Chinatown. It's a creature from Chinese mythology. And the big climax is there's a magic user who is doing a ritual whereby he is opening a portal that will allow a bunch of demons to come through, which are the Deva from Zoroastrian mythology. And four of the six of the do make it through, and so our heroes have to deal with that.
Oh man! All right, that's folks. Pick up this book. It looks like a lot of fun. I'm sure it's a great read. I'm excited to dig into it.
It's available in hardcover, ebook, and audio, and the audio is excellent. I mentioned Patricia Santomaso did the audio reading. She did a phenomenal job.
Oh man, that's exciting.
Thing, you cannot go wrong with the audio either.
Yeah. I might do the. I well, first of all, I want a hardcover from you, but I might do the audio too. So that's good. That's good. It's exciting. Keith, thank you for a really enjoyable conversation, a really great hour of talking to you, man. We have to definitely do this a lot more and do this again. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you. All right, and I have a few things that I want to talk about before we end the show here for folks. I want to give everyone an update and let them know or we're going to put up a QR code for the Subrina Wood Legacy Fund for Subrina. This is doing really well. We want to thank you all from the bottoms of my hearts for that. And 100% of sales go to the fund. So when you get this QR code, it goes to purchasing T-shirts or paraphernalia from our store, and 100% of that goes to the Subrina Wood Legacy Fund for Subrina in her memory. And out of that fund, we're going to put up the other QR code, is Subrina's Boldly Go grants. So what we're doing is that there are going to be 2 $500 Boldly Go grants. I believe we have already hit the $1,000 mark so that we can do 2 grants, 2 $500 grants, and the applications are on the QR code and also in the show notes so that everyone can apply. And see what happens. And we want to try and give individuals that are deserving and in need, of course, of these grants as a memory for Subrina. And lastly, I just want to say thank you to everyone for being a part of this incredible community here at Soul the Story. If you're new here, please don't forget, like, subscribe, ring the bell. You know what I'm going to say. We don't ever want you to miss a conversation here at Soul the Story. Our goal is to always have authentic discussions like the ones we're having, the one we have tonight with Keith, and other incredible individuals. So if you want to get your brand in front of our loyal, story-driven audience, sponsoring Soul the Story is a unique opportunity to do that and connect with consumers who are not only passionate about real stories and about authenticity and diverse perspectives, but also committed to supporting brands that they believe in. Isn't that what we all want? So whether you're a small business or an individual, our community is open, welcome, we're engaged, and we're ready to make meaningful connections. So just go to the show link and description and sponsor SyFysisters.com/sponsors in the show link. And I think next Tuesday, there will be a live show. And my last show closing out book 2 of Soul the Story will be on November 26th. So thank you all. Thank you, Keith. It's been a great evening. We'll see you next time. Thanks again.